富、名声、力、この世の全てを手に入れた男、海賊王ゴールド・ロジャー。彼の死に際に放った一言は人々を海へ駆り立てた。
俺の財宝か？欲しけりゃくれてやる。探せ、この世の全てをそこに置いてきた。
男たちはグランドラインを目指し夢を追い続ける。世はまさに大海賊時代。
ありつけの夢をかき集め、探し物を探しに行くのさ。ポケットのコイン、So that's who you wanna be, my friend. We are on the cruise. We are. Welcome everybody back to the Pirate Odyssey, where I am taking this mask in which you can see my entire setup off in a very awful way. We're gonna continue talking about the live action One Piece today. It has nothing to do with the robot bit. I just felt like doing the robot bit. Here we are, once again, with episode 7 of the live action. How you feeling going into this one, CamCam?
I'm uncomfortable, bro. I'm
because
uncomfortable.
Because of the episode.
Because of the episode. I want to go home. The episode makes me want to go home.
This is true. My opening thoughts on the episode is that this still carries over the good acting that was in the previous 2 episodes, but like the actual plot is significantly more problematic. The Baratier plot was like, it was missing a lot of key stuff with Don Krieg, but it overall like worked okay. The Nami, especially the backstory, was just fucked.
Oh yeah, and even like the characters, the way they act is like garbage, bro. Like the characters don't act like how they're supposed to in the anime and the manga, and it just ruins the whole dynamic.
Yeah, this is one of the key segments of the live action that really solidifies my opinion that this is made by people who either don't understand or misunderstand what One Piece is about and what each individual arc is telling you. Because even though the anime for One Piece, and I mean, I'm sure you could say this about the manga too, has some places where the fat could be trimmed, a lot of the stuff that they cut out and alternative presentations that they put in just like completely miss the mark in terms of what the story of One Piece is trying to tell.
Oh yeah, for sure. I would definitely say the same thing. Like they took out so many important elements, and like and even the music was terrible. Like the music just didn't fit the vibes. You know, like we talked about, like One Piece reuses a lot of the same music over and over again. Like Hassan complained about that. And it was like, even though they reuse the same songs, like in this arc, like they fit perfectly within the arc. But in this one, they used new music, and the new music didn't fit at all. It made the whole like episode uncomfortable. Like,
yeah, I'm trying to think about
like
it.
it took you out of the element.
Yeah. I'm trying to think about the way that they orchestrated the pieces right now, and I feel like in the live action One Piece, I don't want to say this with too much confidence because I'm pretty sure they did this, especially a lot later on in the anime, but it feels like in the live action One Piece, they went out of their way to make like to compose the music for full orchestras when not every piece of music needs that or should have that.
Yeah. I mean, I love full orchestra music. Like it's just so beautiful. But like you said, not need it all the time. So
Yeah. Um,
oh,
yeah, your camera froze there
Frozen.
for a moment.
Okay, okay, I think it's working now.
Yeah,
So
I believe most of the music in One Piece comes from the anime comes from a full orchestra, but it knows how to selectively put certain instruments places, and for certain songs they don't use typical orchestra instruments either. Um,
hmm
but I didn't. Music is not my strong suit when it comes to media analysis, even though I used to play music. So I don't want
hmm
to too. I don't want to go too far in making claims about it.
yeah, same. I mean, I was a band kid, but same. It's been a long time, but it made me uncomfy. I will say that
More,
it gave me the ick.
more so than that, in my case, it's because I just don't actively pay attention to the music that's playing most of the time.
I always actively pay attention to the music. The music for me is always a very important element to an episode or a series because I always listen to anime music. And if I really like the composer, especially, I have favorite composers for anime shows. So like I especially listen to the soundtrack of them specifically. And you can recognize their style, within the soundtracks they make. So yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure if I paid attention to all the stuff that Yuki Kajira has done, I would be able to recognize her music because it's some of the most uh prominent and popular soundtracks comes from her.
hmm Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, definitely.
the thing that gets me in regards to the live action One Piece music, though, as compared to the anime, is it is in part nostalgia and also in part due to how to due to the reuse of its music in certain situations. That when I hear any particular One Piece track, especially the prominent ones, it immediately puts me in a certain emotional state of mind.
Yep.
Um, and I'm not going to say that the live action should have copied the music over from the anime. Um, but I felt it, it it feels very vapid in comparison, the soundtrack for the live action, because it's not actually putting me in the same emotional state of mind as the anime does.
Yeah. Like if they had kept the elements like like if they kept the storytelling um in the episode and then the music wouldn't like it then I would like be more lenient on the music being bad. But the fact that the storytelling's bad and then
Yes.
the music's bad, it just
Yeah.
makes the whole episode bad.
Yeah.
So it's just not an enjoyable experience. It was not a good thing to watch in the morning. So
I
I will say that I did not enjoy this.
the scene in particular that I'm thinking about, because this is the one where the music is like probably playing the loudest, is after Nami stabs herself in the arm. The swelling of that orchestra, like
hmm
on a personal level, I don't think it's like particularly bad, but when you compare it to the same scene from the anime, it lacks the sort of punchy, deliberate intensity as that music does when the Straw Hats are marching on Arlong Park. Um, it,
Yeah.
it's like it's too grandiose when it's
Yeah.
supposed to be serious.
hmm That yeah, definitely. That's a good way of saying it. Yeah, you put it in better words than I could have. You're the smart one in this collaboration, okay?
I mean, I like to think that I'm smart. I don't think that should come at the disparagence of your intelligence, though.
It was a joke, but okay.
um.
But but yeah, and then of course there's Arlong's music every time he pops
Oh
up.
yes.
And then like the
Gross.
party during the party, like there was a new music for them all partying, and it was just trap music. It was terrible. Like
I have a different comment about the party when we get there.
Hmm.
But as usual, let's take it from the top. Um,
Right.
which is starting out on the Going Merry headed to the Kokumi Islands.
Uh,
Um,
Kanomi.
Konomi. I was putting an extra C in there for some reason. The Konomi Islands. And Buggy is the one guiding them get there. And
Buggy's head, just his head.
yes, Buggy's head. And I have to say, one thing I will very much give credit to the creators of the live action for is they at least understand how great Buggy Piece is.
Yes, they do. Buggy is so funny. They make him so funny. They write his comedy so well.
He's great in the live action. They've written him well. His acting is fantastic. Um,
Such a good
and
actor, man.
it's so much fun. Um,
And
I
and of course like Zoro is like suspicious of his actions, like are you going to turn on us? Like what's in it for you, you know? And Zoro is always kind of like the one kind of sussing people out in the anime and manga.
yeah
Like and so I thought that was good that they kept it in that he's kind of like I don't know, bro. I don't know about your intentions here. So yeah.
yeah it's interesting. So in the series, Zoro is basically the de facto first mate of the Straw Hat Pirates.
Mhm.
And every once in a while in the series, he uh, really takes that role upon himself. But most of the time, he's basically just kind of chilling in the same way the rest of them are.
Yeah.
And what I think is perhaps a bit odd about the live action is that they're leaning into that being the case far more. They're writing him to act far more often, far more deliberately as the first mate of the crew. Um,
So like
uh,
giving him more responsibility.
yeah, as opposed to just kind of like letting that come naturally as the situations evolve. I don't
Mm.
necessarily think that particular thing is bad, but it is an interesting thing to think about.
Yeah. And yeah, because it seems like a lot of them, like even Usopp has like a little bit more to do. Like he's keeping an eye on things more, it seems like. And so yeah, like it seems like everybody has like their own place on the ship and like a little bit more responsibility. Because like Nami and oh my god, I'm forgetting the other girl's name that comes later in One
Nojiko?
Piece.
Oh, Vivi?
Yeah, Vivi. And she's like, "Oh my god, the crew is so crazy." And Nami's like, "I know, right?" And you don't really get that element in the live action. You know what I mean? Because
Yeah,
everybody kind of has
you
like their own place.
that's again another thing that is removed with the removal of like the slapstick comedy is it doesn't feel like these
Hmm.
are a bunch of insane people to any normally minded person. Um,
Yeah. Yeah. Everybody's a little bit more like they took the neurodivergency and like took it down to like was it
they
a
took it
couple
from like
levels.
a it took it from like a 9 to like a 3.
Yeah. Yeah. Pretty much. And it's just so weird to do that. I guess, but again, like you said, it's part of the slapstick humor, and they didn't want that. So
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, it makes sense. I mean, and even Luffy's a lot, like you said, a lot more introspective too in this part because he's kind of thinking like, this isn't Nami. Something else has to be going on with Nami. Nami wouldn't do this, you know.
Yeah.
So
The way that I wrote it down is that it's once again proceeding to do tell rather than show. And this is a pervasive problem with this particular arc in the live action is when you compare it to the actual series as it pertains to Luffy in particular, he does a lot of acting instead of speaking. He like doesn't really have that many lines at all.
mm-hmm.
Whereas in this adaptation, he speaks quite a bit really about how he uh perceives the situation with Nami and how he wants to talk about her and to talk about and to her.
Yeah,
And
because yeah, because Yeah, finish.
And furthermore, you can see it in the way that Godoy is acting. He seems very like hung up about the situation, like anxious and um uh, anxious about the way that Nami is acting, which is
Mm-hmm.
very much in contrast with the original series, where he just kind of like goes straight to the heart of it, without much tension.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I would say that is true, definitely. Yeah, because that's along the same lines as what I wrote down in my notes as well.
Yeah,
So yeah, we're definitely both on the same wavelength
yeah,
with it. So yeah.
it's very tense. And you actually see this. I wrote another thing I wrote down later on in my notes. Just throughout the entire episode, Luffy is very tense. You can see it in his body language. He's super tense. You see in his walk
Mm.
cycle, he's always walking with his fists closed and like basically
Even his
flexing his,
face.
yeah, the tense face, basically like flexing his arms as he's like stiffly walking with it, and all of the three others surrounding him are super relaxed. Zoro especially, he's like sauntering. Um
Yeah,
Sanji's got
even
like his hands
Sanji
in his
too,
pockets,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
Luffy's just like
And Luffy's the one that's supposed to be like the most chill, which he is. But he,
yeah,
Luffy's the one who's like, yeah, let's go get Nami. Like we're gonna go get her back. But in the anime, he's one that's like, okay, like I'm gonna let people kind of make their own decisions, and when they ask for help, like, okay, then I'll be helping out. But I'm gonna let them know that like, hey, I'm here if you need me.
yeah.
And like he when like in here he's like actively pursuing, he's tense, he's nervous about things and that and but and that's just not his personality. He's like the most chill, the most relaxed. And to me, that's a sign of like confidence. He's confident
Yeah,
in himself and who he is as a person. When this Luffy, he's not confident in himself. He's not confident in who he is. He's still trying to figure himself out. In the live action is what it kind of seems like. You know what I
and that
mean?
and that's actually especially a point of consideration when you look at like the sort of entirety of One Piece as a whole, beyond where you've watched, where there are points throughout the series in which Luffy is very much challenged by the situations unfolding around him, and not just
Hmm.
physically. And you can see in the way that he's presented how much more how those situations are affecting his like temperament at the time,
Hmm.
versus how he acts when he's not in those situations, when they're just digging around on the ship between arcs.
Hmm.
And so you and so they're starting him from this point of insecurity, rather than rather than what happens throughout specific points in the series where he is forced into a state of insecurity.
Mm, yeah. Yeah. That makes sense.
So it's a bit odd. Um,
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is odd. Which I don't know. And I don't know why they would go that route. Maybe hmm, it's just it's just odd. I don't know. Maybe to make it like more relate I would think like to make it more relatable to like younger people, cuz younger people are still trying to figure themselves out, trying to figure out their personalities, kind of like what they want in life, what their values are, but like I don't know.
if that's the case, though, that's missing what One Piece, what the character of Luffy does from that perspective, um,
Yeah.
for young people. Because what he does for younger people, in the actual series, is he is sort of like a figure of inspiration. This is the
Yeah.
person that you're supposed to act like. This is a person with confidence in who they are and what they want and what they're going to do. Um, and it's very much different to have a figure of inspiration versus a figure of insecurity.
Yeah, definitely. So, but which I think is like better. You know, I think a lot of us are insecure like about ourselves. So like it's different to have like to see a character that's very confident in themselves. It's a better example. It's a better role model. Something different, you know.
And
S-
what
yeah.
I think is particularly good about the way that the original series presents himself is, again, it goes back to these points in which he's challenged. Is I forgot the way I was gonna phrase this, but it's more poignant to have these points of challenges when you're taking someone from a place of confidence to a place of weakness than it is to just have a continuous state of weakness.
Mm,
Um, I think it's a bit difficult to comment on like how this might have long term um
consequences. Yeah.
consequences or propagatory effects uh without having direct points of comparison to those scenes to the live action.
Yeah. But you can fall into this trap.
Yes. Uh, Something else is a little bit odd is they cut to a brief scene of Nami's backstory, and they're right in the beginning. There's this shot where Nami starts running after Nojiko through the tangerine bushes, and the entirety of the shot fades to being blurry. And again, it's very off-putting the level of blurriness that this entire
Yes.
series has. And
I hate it.
it's especially noticeable when you make it literally the entire shot. Why was absolutely nothing in focus during that shot? I don't know. There was something in focus at the start of the shot, but as the shot proceeded, it blurred everything out. And I'm just thinking, why? Why would you do that? I don't know.
It makes it so it's like what am I supposed to be looking at? Like what's going on? It totally just takes you out of the element. And and you're like, "Oh, like I'm supposed to be feeling like maybe some nostalgia during the scene," and you just don't feel that because everything's blurry. I don't know what's happening.
Uh,
And you would think like it's a tangerine orchard, like that's such a good thing to like that's such a good background, like especially with the sun shining, like that'd be beautiful to see. And again, like everything's blurry, so we don't know what it looks like.
yeah, it's true. It's true. When you blur everything out, it's hard to tell what it looks like.
And the only time we actually saw like beautiful scenery was during that Zoro's like best friend's like funeral. Like
Yeah.
that's the only pretty background we saw.
Oh.
Like
And,
not allowed to see anything else pretty. Oh, so frustrating.
and I would also like, I suppose this is a good time to draw the point of comparison to there is actually another shot later in this very same episode where rather than fade to blurriness, they fade to crisp clarity. And
Oh yes.
when I saw in this series a shot in which the entirety of the picture was crisp and clear, it blew my mind. I was like, I didn't realize that this show could do this. That's astonishing.
No, like I was literally shook. I was shooketh.
Especially since this was during a dialogue scene, not during a fight scene. So
Yeah.
so
It was like taking off your glasses and then like putting them back on.
yeah, exactly. It actually was. And and the particular thought I had going through my mind was this shot right here demonstrates how perfectly acceptable and often good it is to just have like a straightforward visual picture of what's going on, as if you just like took a normal flat picture with a camera and that's what's happening. It's brilliant. It's so simple.
It looks great. Wow.
But it's brilliant. You need to do that
Look what
more
you did.
often, please. Um,
We don't need the fisheye lens. We don't need to see up people's nostrils. Like this is fine. Stop
yeah.
it. No more.
And for anybody who wants to know when this takes place, it's during the scene when Nami digs up her treasure and is talking to Nojiko in the middle of the night.
Yes. It's just so weird. And there was another one too, where like it's crystal clear, and then it blurs, and then it's crystal clear again. I want to say it's in the flashback, but I think it's like towards like when there's like 30 minutes left into the episode, and it's like in one of the flashbacks, but it does it like, and it's yeah, it's like blurry, crystal clear, and then blurry again. And I'm like, why would you do that? That's so confusing. It
Uh,
makes it so hard to watch.
I did notice there was a couple of times throughout the episode in which it like changed the camera focus during a shot to like focus on different things.
Hmm.
And during those times, I didn't like think that it was all that bad. I felt like, oh, there's actually kind of cinematographic reasons for doing it in this particular situation. But it's again, it's used throughout the entire series and is very egregious and just bring it back to the fact that there was a shot that was entirely blurry and there was a shot that was entirely crisp, and the contrast between the two, given the state of what the rest of the series looks at, was just profound. It felt profound.
It was an experience, okay?
Yeah. It really was. I mean, I wouldn't remember because I was super young at the time, but it was probably like the first time I got glasses.
Oh my yeah, like wow, like when my sister like got glasses at like 6 years old, and she was like, "Wow, the trees have leaves on them." That's what it was
They're
like.
not just a fuzzy green mass.
They're actually leaves. Wow.
Oh man.
Huh. Yeah. What an experience, bro. You shouldn't. Oh my god. You shouldn't have to do that in a movie. Oh my god. It's like basic stuff, man. And oh, and then there's like
Imagine a movie gives you a pair of glasses, gives everybody who watches it a pair of glasses to put on and off at specific times in the movie.
that's what it feels like. I'm like, should not. No. And then of course they had that yellow filter like I feel like throughout the episode when we're outside. I'm like,
It was specifically while they were in Kokoyashi Village.
yeah, yeah. And I'm like,
It's very
it's
yellow.
yeah, I'm like Kokoyashi Village is like beautiful. Like like why would you make it yellow? But okay.
They went out of their way to make it look significantly more destitute than it was in the actual
Mm-hmm.
series, which is not necessarily a bad choice considering they're all supposed to be poor and giving up all of their money to Arlong every month
Yeah.
anyways.
So they
Um
wouldn't like be able to like focus on agriculture maybe and like,
yeah.
taking care of things outside. So okay, I get it, but
I think this
but if you didn't do it throughout the whole series,
yeah, yeah.
it would have a little bit more punch to it.
I this, this is kind of a major distinction too between the live action and the actual series, where there's a lot more like sort of modern construction in the housing and the buildings in the actual series,
Mm,
and with the paint jobs as well. The places that people live in the towns that the Straw Hats visit do have a lot more vibrancy to them.
yeah.
They look a lot more contemporary than the live action housing, especially in Kokoyashi Village, where it was
Yeah,
like
that
they
is
were
true.
living in a fucking rural Chinese village from 50 years ago.
Yeah, like and then in the house that like Nami grew up in, it's like bare bones. Like they just have curtains like there's like four entry points and they're all just like covered up with like curtains it seems
Yeah,
like,
it was like it looks like it was made of straw. That the roofing
Yeah, yeah.
was made of straw,
Yeah.
definitely. The rest of it was like basic woodwork. Um,
Yeah, which I guess would make sense because they're poor, but
yeah,
I was like, yeah.
it's not a bad choice, but it is
Hmm.
definitely a different one and a distinction from the way the original series looks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's an interesting choice.
Um, Back to where we were in the plot. During this same first flashback of Nami's childhood, I had another thing I wrote down, which is that's where they have the pinwheel come from in the live action, which is to say, they have Nojiko and later on they have Belmare turn a tangerine peel into a pinwheel um, head, I guess, and attach it to a stick. And that's the pinwheel that will later
Yo, I'm
become
sorry, that's a
the
lot of work.
that will later become the design of on Nami's shoulder for her tattoo. And that's just so much more pathetic of a use of the pinwheel than the one that you are given in the actual series, which is Nami is scared of Gen, and so he puts a pinwheel on his hat and she starts laughing. He always wears the pinwheel. It's a way of getting you emotionally invested in the character, and and also gives a strong reason why Nami would make that part of her tattoo design. She becomes very like I mean, I guess you could make that same argument for the tangerine peel, but it just comes across as so much more pathetic in comparison because like she associates her family with the tangerines,
Mm-hmm.
but she associates the pinwheel with Gen in the original series and maybe the village as a whole. And so that's sort of like the combination that's going on there with her tattoo. Whereas in this series, it's both the tangerine and the pinwheel are both her family, and it's just one aspect of a larger problematic narrative that I will build throughout the rest of this episode in regards to Gen in particular.
Yeah, it's like a domino effect, it feels like, you know?
Yeah.
And because Geen, or his name's Genzo, I think,
Oh,
right?
it's Genzo. My bad. I
Yeah.
was calling him Gen this entire time. It's Genzo.
It's because the only reason I know that is because I watched the anime. I watched the flashback of the live action, and then I watched it, and then I watched the anime after that. And I compared the two.
You may have called me smart earlier, but you definitely put more work in than me.
You know I did, girl. And yeah, so it's yeah, and Genzo, he was the one that always bailed Nami out of trouble. You know, Nami was always stealing books from the bookstore.
Oh yeah.
And Genzo was always the one that would pay for the books for Nami, you know, to kind of bail her out of trouble.
Yeah. I.
And
Uh,
and, and so that also creates a closer bond. And Genzo was the one to tell Nami Bellamare's whole backstory.
yeah. Yeah.
So again, there's that closer bond, that closer connection.
Yeah.
So of course she associates that pinwheel with him and her love for him. It's like her father figure, you know? So
I'm going to be talking about each of these things as they prop up chronologically, but you are very much right. There's so many emotional problems that are introduced by effectively cutting Gen out of the story in a meaningful way,
mhm,
where it makes the entire thing just less interesting and less um
striking.
yeah, less striking, less evocative. It's just bad. It's bad. It's worse. It's worse. It's worse.
Oh, I did like one thing I will comment on since like we're on the flashback. Um the Nami's hair, Nojiko's hair, and then Bellamare's hair. Their wigs are all very pretty. I will say that. They did a good job on the wigs. Makeup, y'all did a good job. It looks very natural. It doesn't look fake at all. So yeah, great job.
I
Doesn't
don't
look
know if I
stiff.
necessarily agree, but it's from like a different perspective, and that
Mm-hmm.
is, I think the coloration of the hair on each of the three, uh, but Belmare is the least problematic of the three, I think. It's just so distinct from everybody else in the flashbacks and not in the flashbacks, just like in general, that it comes across kind of it comes across fake because it doesn't really like fit in with the environment. And I think they
Mm,
do a lot better of a job with that with Nami's hair in the present. I think they do a better job of blending in the coloration of her hair in the present than they do in the past. But Nojiko's hair in both the present and the past is such like a prominent shiny blue that it comes across as odd in a way that if you when they do the same thing in animation, it doesn't come across as odd because the entire show is so vibrant and colorful anyways.
and everybody looks weird.
Yeah. It's like
Yeah,
you don't mind when somebody has blueberry hair when Sanji has curly eyebrows.
yeah, exactly. And like you have moss hair over there, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and the thing is with blue hair though, it's like and like like I like Nojiko's hair better when she was a kid because like it blends better, but that's just like a personal opinion. But yeah,
No.
anyways, I thought it was just a good job because it didn't look fake and it didn't look like super stiff because usually like whenever you dye wigs crazy colors and do like hairstyles like that, it can look very stiff and very fake. So I'm looking at it from that perspective. But yeah, it like when they're all laying down on the ground, and they're in that circle and you can all see their hair, it does come off very like uncanny. You're kind of like, oh, they're on the grass, So yeah.
I didn't really think about this when I was watching, but I'm thinking about Belmare's hairstyle in the live action compared to the anime, and how in the anime she is like the sides of her head are like shaved uh
Hmm.
down to her scalp, and I don't think that that's the case in the live action.
No, it's like Buzz to probably like a 2 or a 3, I think.
Which I definitely actually that is actually a change that I will agree with. I think her hairstyle in the actual series not all that great because of the way that it's like shaved down to her scalp. It's like,
Why?
honey,
Way. Way though.
honey, maybe you should get a better barber. I know you're poor.
But like if you're gonna buzz it, just buzz the whole thing, okay, girl?
Yeah. Why are you giving yourself like a sort of a ponytailed mohawk going across the front? And then also she still has the hair like underneath the buzzed sides as well.
Yeah. And then like this little curls right here. It's just,
Yeah. It's
and
very
bangs. Don't forget the bangs.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
It's just odd looking
Yep.
in the anime.
Yeah, and it blends, like the way it's buzzed. It's like I said, it's probably like a 2 or 3, and it just blends really well with the ponytail and the bangs. So yeah,
Yeah.
and I did like that. Much better job.
So to close off that initial flashback, I will say they actually, for once in their life, did a pretty good transition between the flashback and the present with the gambling scene. I was like,
Hmm.
oh, they have Belmare saying the line, and then they have Chu saying the line, and it fades in between. It's like, oh, that's actually smart. Wow.
Wow, they did it. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
like when they actually do a good job, it's more like surprising than anything else. It's sad.
Yes.
It's very sad. You're actually surprised they did a good job. It
uh,
Yeah, yeah, it is. I did like that. It's kind of like she's in like a stupor because she's back home, after such a long time that it's kind of shocking for her. Almost like probably a bit of trauma being back home after so long.
yeah.
Oh yeah,
You
I
can
did like that.
you can actually read into and think about what the cinematography is trying to tell you, as opposed to having no meaning behind it at all. It's like
Oh
what's it
yeah.
called, the Kuleshov effect, where there's the act of cutting between shots has meaning in of itself, and in
Hmm.
fact oftentimes produces greater meaning than the individual scenes that you are cutting between.
Interesting. But yeah, that makes sense.
So this gambling scene is a good example of points in the series where I understand why they're messing with the camera focusing and the when particular things such as the background are blurred out to give like emphasis and clarity to other parts of the shot. But it still irks me in the way that they're doing it. And I feel like the reason why, in the case of scenes like this, has to do with the amount of blurring that's going on. They're making everything in the background effectively completely indistinct, as opposed to just making it less clear.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the glasses comparison that you brought up earlier is very poignant because in shots like those, it actually is like the moments in time in my life, such as when I like wake up in the morning and go to the shower, that I'm not wearing my glasses, where it's like I can see what's right in front of me, but anything beyond that is completely
It's just
indistinct. It's like I can see vague shapes and colors, but it's not like I actually can tell what's going on, and it is really bothersome that that's the case.
yeah, it's very annoying. It's
You,
like I want to see what's going on over there,
yeah,
just because it's not completely necessary because it seems like they're trying to tell us that it's not necessary you need to see over there. But like I still want to. I would like to.
yeah.
I would like the option.
Maybe a good way of saying what I think you should do in cases like these is make it like peripheral vision, like it's supposed to be, wherein you're looking directly at the thing that is of importance to the shot, and everything else is kind of faded slightly in the same way that your peripheral vision is. Where because I'm pretty sure it's this is the case where whatever you're not directly looking at actually has a level of blurriness to it because
Hmm.
your brain is not focusing on it. So I feel like when you do a shot like that, that is also what you should do, is you should have it slightly like blurred or indistinct, but not so much that it's completely unclear.
Yeah, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, that would look a lot better, honestly, than just completely just blur everything.
Yeah. Uh, so Nami wins her fucking gambling and she goes into Arlong Park, and this is also a big problem I have with the set design, which in this particular arc, which is Arlong Park is a big old fucking empty temple. There's nothing inside of it. There's seemingly no rooms. It's just one room right in the center. It's completely open, and there's nothing inside of it. There's basically nothing inside of it.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah, definitely. It's just like everything's going on outside at all
and
times.
and this is particularly problematic because that same big empty room is seemingly the one that Arlong forced Nami to draw her charts in. But when you
But it's
compare
empty.
that, yeah, exactly. When you compare that to the rooms that she does in the actual series, that room is filled to the brim with all sorts of like maps and charts and what have you.
There's paper like up to
Yeah,
the ceiling.
there's piles of them. They're pinned everywhere, and there's books all open and scattered about. Um, Whereas in this big old empty room, there's like maybe 10 charts, some of them sticking out from inside of a barrel. And it's like, so Nami was Arlong's captive for over 10 years,
Hmm.
and he had her draw for the sake of drawing maps. And
And
he
that's all
had her
all he
draw,
wanted her for.
yeah, and he had her draw like a dozen maps.
Yeah, yeah, and in the room that she's in the live action, yeah, there's like it's it reminds me of what we did in theater for like small plays in high school, where we just haphazardly just like threw things on the wall here and there just to make it look like on our set pieces. Just Like, oh, put a couple papers here, a couple paper there, just to make it like look like we're in this kind of room. But we don't need to put that much stuff on it. We just need to give the audience some kind of idea of
Yeah.
what room we're in. That's what it feels like.
Oh yeah, a live stage performance is completely different because there's only
Yeah.
so much like time and capability for you to uh, in this particular case have just like massive stacks of massive sheets of paper scattered about here and there because you've got to both
Yeah.
put that up in the middle of the show and then take it down in the middle of the show depending on where it happens in the show. Whereas in
Mhm.
here it's like it is a set that they built for the sake of making these shots that is aside from like the table in the center that they swap out, I think, depending
Mhm.
on when in the series it takes place, is the same. It's like because it's a static thing that is meant to be used over the course of multiple days of footage, of shooting
Yeah.
footage.
So
Very
it's like
similar.
what? So it's like, what's the problem, bros?
And I don't want to underestimate the level of importance that it has that the room should be filled with maps and charts because it's an important emotional beat that happens when Luffy fights Arlong, that he's in this room and he's not even paying attention to Arlong and he's like, "Oh, this is what your life was like for the past over 10 years. I
It finally clicks for him.
yeah, I need to destroy what is making you so unhappy." And so you get an entire sequence effectively of him kicking desks and papers out the window and destroying them, and having
Yeah, and
Arlong
her room
cut
is
through
also
them.
like on a higher level too in the anime,
Yeah,
so it makes it more dynamic, I would
yeah.
say.
And everybody in the background is also like, "What the fuck is going on in there?" The desk was just kicked out the window, and they're like, "Is that a footprint in the desk?"
Yeah. You also have that too, because it's coming out of a freaking window. So everybody's
Yeah.
like,
Every, every, everybody's wondering just what is going on inside of that room, and Nami is the only one who recognizes because that's it's the only one for who Luffy doing that is actually important.
hmm.
It's this great scene, and then if you have no charts, you do not get that scene.
If there's like five sheets of paper, who cares?
Yeah,
And oh yeah, and then like I think one of the maps is like dusty too. So it's like she hasn't
I mean,
been in
that's fine because she goes on like independent voyages to steal money, and so like if she's gone for like a couple months, dust is going to build up. But what doesn't make sense about dust building up in unless you're talking about in the anime, there's dust built up.
no in the live action. But it's like it almost looks like she hasn't been in there like in a long, long time. Like not
So
just a couple months, like long, long, long.
yeah, I will say what doesn't make sense about there being dust in there for the live action is the fact that that room is used for other purposes other than Nami drawing charts. Like Arlong goes
Yeah,
in there to do business with Nezumi. And it's like, why would there be dust in there?
yeah, and yeah, that's another thing. It's just like weird if there's foot traffic
It
coming in and out
it's supposed to be this lived-in space that the
just
Arlong
for her.
pirates
It's
inhabit.
her prison. You know that room.
Oh yeah, that specific room is supposed to be her prison, but I'm saying Arlong Park as a whole, that building, is supposed to be this lived-in space where at least presumably all of the
Mm,
fishmen live.
okay.
And again, it's just this one big ass empty room. So where do all the fishmen sleep? Do they sleep underwater? I mean, they can, I guess.
They can. Maybe they
Do they
do.
have beds underwater? I don't think so.
No, they just float, bro.
They just they sleep just suspended in the water. No, that's not how that works. The fishmen appear later on in One Piece. They sleep on beds.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Not in the live action. Live action's different, bro. Sorry
Yeah,
to disappoint.
live action's built different. They don't want to build underwater beds.
But yeah, it's just and it just seems like it almost seems like Arlong Park is just like a party island, you know. They're just there to party it up, you know.
Yeah,
It just doesn't seem like a home for the fishermen.
yeah. Um, so then there might be a marine scene in between this. I know I didn't write anything down for the
Yeah,
marine scene. Um,
there's
the first marine scene I didn't write anything down for.
yeah, it's Garp goes into the restaurant
Yeah.
and yeah, and you know, looking for Luffy and what Zeph is like, "Oh, like I'll treat you to a steak." And of course, like my man Garp's always down for a steak, you know?
Of course, it's got to be pretty rare.
Yeah, it's got to be more on the rare side than the medium side.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I was like, yeah, my man's always down to eat. Duh. But again, this scene just feels so pointless. I'm like, what the heck? I don't care that this man wants to eat a freaking steak, bro. I don't care. Why are we here? It just feels so pointless.
They make
I
something of
understand
it.
we're there for information, but like, why does it have to be presented this way? I don't care. I don't care about Garb. I don't care about Himippo. I don't. I'm over it. I'm over it.
Yeah, I mean they make something of it later on in the episode, but I think I've mentioned it in for a previous episode that like there's this it seems as though there's this pervasive thought or need for the people who made this series to cut between different people in different scenes fairly regularly. I didn't actually time it, but it felt like every fucking 5 minutes we were seeing different set of people, and it's as though they have no understanding of the fact that you can just show for in the case of the anime several episodes really um
Mm.
but you can show uh for 30 minutes just one entire cohesive scene or set of people doing a particular thing before you have to go to somebody else doing a thing um or like a completely different part of the island. It's just it's silly. The series should be more focused when it depicts things. Uh,
Yeah, because it just feels so out of sync. It's such a stopgap. It's just
yeah, because you get a scene like this with Garp where you show him walking to the restaurant for the steak, and then you cut away somewhere else. So like the scene where you had him just walk into the steak for the restaurant doesn't actually accomplish anything. What you should have done instead probably is combine that and the second scene in which he's talking to Zeph together into one cohesive thing. So there was actually like a point to showing you
mm,
that instead of it feeling like you can just check out for
so
5 minutes
disjointed. Yeah,
or 3 minutes or however long it is.
yeah. It's like yeah, because in the second scene, gotten in the second scene, like watching Garp eat that steak, I'm like, that is disgusting. I don't want to hear that man chomping down on that steak. Like, ugh, it's so gross. Ugh. So yeah, and yeah, you could have, like you said, you could have definitely put those scenes together, and it would have been fine. So, hi doggy, hi
Uh,
doggy.
so then we get another flashback for Nami, and this is the where we have the book stealing thing. Where in this case, what happened? Where maybe I should start by describing what happens in the anime, which is that she is like reading a book in the bookstore and she sneaks out of the bookstore with the book hidden underneath her dress.
Mm-hmm.
And then Genzo, Genzo, catches her while she's in town and the fact that she steals a book and he rats on her to Belmare.
Yeah.
Um, in the live action, what happens is she's just like reading a book inside their house, and
Mm-hmm.
Belmare sees her reading the book. Or rather, when Belmare comes in, she like hides it behind her back, and Belmare is the one who discovered that she stole it. Um, and I think this is just like a much lamer way of presenting the situation and what happened by having and the dynamics at play between all these people by having Belmer discover the stealing as opposed to Genzo.
Yeah, and like I said before, Genzo's the one that's always bailing Nami out of trouble. He's the one that's always paying for her books that she's that she
Yes.
steals. And and also Bellamere, she like in the anime she seduces Genzo basically.
Yes, that's yeah, you also don't get that bit where she's like,
Yeah.
I'll pay with my body, and then you see Nami also try the same trick.
Yeah,
So so you're
and
missing this thing where like you have the child take after the parent, just like you're basically missing that with Luffy and Garp. It's like,
yeah.
ah,
Yeah,
please. One
and it
Piece does
also
that so often.
and it also shows that Bellemare, she has a sassy personality. She's silly, and she just comes across as, and she's charming. She comes across as such like the striking personality. And in the scene in the live action, she just comes across as like any other mom. She could be anybody's mom. Like she's nobody really special. She comes across kind of rigid. So that's what I didn't like. We don't really get to see her personality kind of shine through in this scene in the live action. So I was kind of disappointed about that. Not kind. I was really disappointed because I really liked Bellamere in the anime. I really loved her character. I thought she was a great mom and how she treated the kids, even though she slapped the crap out of Nami. But what can you do? We all screw up when we're taking care of kids. But I loved her. I loved her. But what can you do? Live action's gonna screw things up.
Another so as part and parcel to that, there's the argument about like Nami being upset that she's poor. I felt it came across as like very sudden and spontaneous in the live action.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know if I have a good way of articulating it without directly comparing the scenes. But another thing that it screwed up for sure is that it has Nami make up with Belmare prior to Arlong showing up, as
Hmm.
opposed to during Arlong's assault on their house. And this, there's like this sort of cascade effect of a bunch of things being done, being screwed up in the presentation of the plot happening to make the overall emotional impact worse, which is that they're in the house already when Arlong shows up and assaults the village. They've already like made up as a family, so there's no um, sort of like I suppose you could say tension. I don't I don't know how to phrase it. Um, but Genzo isn't there. He gets his scars not from protecting Nami and Nojiko, but from just like the initial assault that
Yeah.
happens. Um, I feel like there's a couple of other things. Um,
Well, and also Nojiko is the one that's kind of like, yeah, because after, oh yeah, there's one part in the anime where Nami's kind of like, after Nami's like, oh, like I hate being poor, and she's like, you probably hate taking care of us, and you probably wish that you could that you never adopted us, and you wish you could have more money so you can buy nice things. Like they're very pointed insults at Bellamere, and we don't get that in the live action. Like those are very hurtful things that Nami has said to her adopted mother. And so it's almost like when they don't make up, like you said, they make up by the time, when Arlong gets there. It's almost like, I wish I never said that to my mom. Like she kind of feels guilty that she even said those things to her mom, because it's almost like it was too late, you know? Those were kind of like some of the last things I said to her, you know.
Well, not not really so much that, because they do actually make up before Belmare dies, but it's in the situation of
But it's all
Bel
such a short span of time, you know.
yeah, the situation in which it occurs in the actual series is that Arlong shows up and is like, you need the money for tribute, and they're like, supposedly nobody else lives here, so they're about to leave, and then she says, "Who said that money was for me? That's for my two daughters." And so
Mhm.
the point there is that even though they just had this fight not terribly long ago, uh, Belmare is demonstrating that despite that, she still has a mother's love for Nami, which
Yeah.
causes her to rush out from behind the tangerine bushes and like give her a hug.
Yeah. Yeah, and Nojiko too is like, I think Nojiko before that says in the kitchen to Bellamere like, "Oh, Nami doesn't mean that, and like you need to go make up to her basically." And she's like, "You know what? You're being the adult here. Like, okay, yeah, you're right. I'll make something special. Like go get Nami, for dinner or something like that." So it also shows like Nojiko's personality as well. She's kind of the peacemaker in the family.
Yeah,
So there's another dynamic that we're missing in the live action as well.
yeah. And it is also worth noting, by the way, all of this stuff regarding Arlong's raid, initial raid of Kokoyashi, in which Belmare is killed, um, versus the conflict between Nami and Belmare about being poor. Those two scenes are actually separated from each other by two other scenes, one of which is back in the present with Arlong talking to Nami, and the other which is the Straw Hats walking through Kokoyashi Village. So instead of this one cohesive story of Nami's backstory, once again it's being split up. And for, if you ask me, like, uh, so the way that Belmare's killing is presented in the live action is when Nojiko is telling the story to the Straw Hats, but not any of the stuff before. And the live act, whereas in the anime, and it's just that section of the story. In the anime, she's telling the entirety of the thing to the Straw Hats minus Luffy. Um, and it's just, I mean, all of this rambling just to say I dislike how it's split up that way.
Hmm. Yeah. I get what you're saying, and then like I said with like with Genzo, also like Genzo is the one to kind of in the anime kind of tell Nami that like this is how your mother found you, and like like your mother loves you, and da da da. So again, that's the connection she has with Genzo, and then also something I wrote down was that I don't know if I can find it, but I did like in the anime, okay, that that Bellamere was a part of the Marines, right? And that is stated in the live action as well. Sorry, my dog's crying.
Yeah,
Oh,
it's
I just don't.
stated.
But
I
yeah,
mean, it's
that
shown a little bit. But
yeah that she's in the Marines, and that she I'm trying to find it. Oh yeah, that she said the kids in the anime. She says the kids have renewed my love for life. And in the live action, all she says to Nami is, I had to live so I could take care of you. And I feel like in the anime, her saying they have renewed my love of life is so much more impactful than like, I had to live so I could take care of you. Like, I don't know, that hits different. It hits different. It's like to say that like, wow, these two children, like here I am, like suffering in a war zone, like I'm wounded. I'm the only one that survived this painful experience. Like you're down, you're so upset, like you don't think you can live through this, and here are these children that you found, and like you have like you they give you a reason to live, and all she says in live action is like, "Oh, I had to live for you guys." LOL. Like it just feels different. It doesn't feel as impactful. It's
Another
not as
thing
an impactful statement.
another thing that you reminded me of is that in the anime also the villagers talk about how Nami and Nojiko like are the happiness of the entire village. They're like the village's
Yeah.
children, not just Belmare's. And that uh, again hits adds another emotional layer to everything that happens in the arc that is missing from the live action. I would also like to add, I was actually wrong about it being split up into two separate parts. It is actually split up into three separate parts.
Yeah, it's like beginning, middle.
Yeah, there's
Yeah.
the poor argument split up by a couple of scenes to Arlong invading, split up by a couple of scenes to Arlong killing Belmare, which is just annoying. It's annoying. That's what it is.
Yeah, and I did put in my notes that you're not in the moment long enough to really appreciate it.
Yeah.
Because in the anime, it's all in one scene when Genzo's kind of explaining things to her. So
Another way I wrote down of phrasing how they treated Genzo is that by cutting him out of the story, they ruined all of the exposition because Genzo basically does like most of the exposition, or at least, or rather, is involved with most of the exposition, most of the story that takes place in Nami's backstory. And so by cutting him out of it almost entirely, you're making it so much worse. You're just cutting out an entire level of emotional depth.
yeah,
Uh,
because like I said, he is literally a father figure to her.
uh, so back
Oh yeah,
to
and then yeah, Luffy. He's like well, I'm gonna see what you say because I don't even remember where we are in the
oh,
story.
I was gonna move on to, well, okay, so
Okay.
after the poor speech is they cut to the conversation between Arlong and Nami inside Arlong Park.
Oh yeah.
That's what I was going to make a comment on if you wanted to talk about something else first.
Yeah, it's like I think okay, because in the anime, because I don't rewatch this scene. Isn't in the anime like she brings or like Arlong just notices the maps that she has, right? That like notices
Oh
that Nami has
yeah,
maps.
yeah. So that's another thing that takes place. Maybe we should go back to taking it chronologically though, because although that is another part of like that whole Belmare sequence of events that is again just missing the point. Um,
Okay.
but to start by going back to chronologically, so there's this after the poor fight, there's the scene of Arlong conversing with Nami, and in this like sort of speech he makes to her as he's like approaching her and basically threatening her for the Grand Line map, there's this weird extra like shot that happens in which he's I don't know how I can best describe this, but like he's talking to her as he's approaching, and it like shows it from I think the wide shot, and then it zooms in on his face for like maybe a second before going back to the wide shot and then showing Nami's face. That, or it's the other way around between his face and the wide shot. And just the way that it's presented is that interim shot during Arlong talking comes across as very like extra and superfluous and distracting.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, why did you insert that shot there? I don't know. Um, I'd have to look at it again to describe that in more detail though.
Yeah. Yeah, I just in this I just hate Arlong's clothes. This is so random. I hate Arlong's clothes in this scene because I'm like he's wearing like he looks like a gangster, like a like not even a mafia member. He looks like don't even know if gangster is even the right word. Like, I don't know. He just looks so silly with the
I mean, the
orange and
Arlong
the
Pirates
green.
don't act that far away from being mafia, but I mean, I'm not in disagreement that his outfit looks a little silly.
Cause like, isn't he wearing like almost like beachy clothes? I want to say.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm like, why don't they put him in? Oh, I don't know. It's just
I mean,
so
he was
weird.
wearing
Oh my
beachy
god,
clothes in
what
the
are you eating?
original series too.
Sorry. Oh, God, you're bothering me. Sorry.
So then we get the scene of the Straw Hats walking into Kokoyashi Village with Luffy's stiff walk cycle, and they're just like commenting on it. I don't have anything to say about that. And after they see the whole like tribute situation and Nojiko spitting at Nami, get into that later.
Oh, I was like, ew, I hate that. Ugh, I hate that.
It goes back to the flashback, and this time it's when Arlong is invading. And again, Gen gets his wounds not from protecting anybody, but just because Arlong or
He's duking it out, with
Karibu. Caribou. It's not Caribou. That's a different character. I forget his name.
like, oh girl, I don't know.
Just cuts him up and just like in the middle of the village. So it's no emotional scene there. The thing I haven't mentioned yet though is so in this point in the flashback, Arlong just like sort of randomly flips one of the houses over in the same way that is done in the anime. But if I'm not wrong, if I'm not misremembering this, the reason he flips the house in the anime is because he's acting out in a fit of rage after Zoro and Usopp have been basically giving him the runaround for the past day.
Yeah, so he's fussy. And it seems like here he just flips it and that's it. I'm like,
Yeah.
bro, what are you doing? I was like, he reminds me of my dog like flipping over his toy and just walking away from it.
And furthermore, one of the reasons they show this is because in the present, I think it's Usopp sees a house that is flipped over and asks like what kind of thing would be able to do something like this. And so the thought that enters my head is, wait a second, Kokoyashi Village didn't bother to like destroy or rebuild this house in the over 10 years in the interim? They just left this house flipped over that entire time?
It's cursed, bro. They ain't touching it. It's cursed. It's got the bad juju.
I mean, it's not like Arlong, if he is the same character, would care if they rebuilt the house. He only cares about receiving his tribute.
Yeah, that's all he cares about. He doesn't care what they do.
Yeah. So then we go back to the present, and Luffy wants to go see Nojiko to learn about what's happening because this isn't the same Luffy. And the way he asks Gen to see Nojiko is he asks her, "Can I go see the one with the cool hair?" Which, first of all, is kind of confusing as a viewer because Nami also has like the cool distinct hair, and Nami is the one who most recently talked to Gen and was like most recently in the area, whereas Nojiko stormed off at like right at the beginning. But second of all, the reason I point this out is more so this comes across as a way for the show to diplomatically say, where can I find the one that is black? Because Nojiko is because Nojiko is the only black person in the entire village, and that would obviously be the easiest characteristic to say where, or to indicate what person I'm trying to look for. It's
and I mean Luffy's a little neurodivergent. I don't think anybody would get mad at him.
And I mean, maybe you could use phrasings like dark skinned or whatever, but I mean, I feel like this is just a way for the show to try and avoid getting canceled rather than it making any sense. Because if you ask me, it doesn't make necessarily a whole lot of sense.
Maybe. Oh, but another thing. about this scene that kind of rubbed me the wrong way is like they were like, once the Straw Hats kind of saw how everybody in the village kind of reacted to Nami. Shut up. How everybody in the village kind of reacted to Nami. They were like, see, everybody hates her. Oh my god, she's a bad person. And Luffy's like, not him. He didn't react that way. And I'm like, so what? Luffy can like read minds now and like read people?
No,
Like what is he,
no.
like an empath?
What he's
Is that what he was referring to? I was so confused. I
he
was
kind of
like,
is
what's
an empath,
happening?
but no, what happened was that everybody in the village seems. He said everybody in the village seems scared of her, except for Nojiko, who spat at her feet and walked off. And so
No,
that's
I thought he was talking about Genzo. Because after that, he went to go talk to Genzo.
well, he went to talk to Genzo to ask where Nojiko. But you are actually right. That is actually a little bit confusingly presented because he's like, except for one person, and then he calls out Genzo. So it's like, and
Okay.
Genzo acted in possibly a similar manner as to Nojiko, whereas like not necessarily afraid of Nami. I mean, he didn't spit at her feet, but like, but you are right that like the way the dialogue is presented is kind of confusing because it's like when he calls out Genzo, it's as though he wants to talk to Genzo about Nami.
Yeah.
And then when he calls out for Nojiko, it sounds like he's calling out for where Nami is because of the cool hair thing.
Yeah.
So it's like, who's talking about who?
Yeah, that's why I was like, what is happening? I'm so confused. Okay, so it wasn't just me. Okay, it does sound confusing.
I also kind of feel like the dialogue of when he's talking to Genzo is written like a old literature book where it's like where they're like getting to the point in a somewhat long-winded sort of eloquent manner as opposed to being like are you talking about Nojiko? She lives over there, but I don't recommend talking to her. But instead it's like, oh, I don't know who you are, but like if it'll get you off of my back, if you go to the end of the Tangerine Village orchard, it felt long-winded is all.
Yeah, and he's like, oh, I don't recommend you talk to her or something like that.
Yeah.
You know, that was also in there, and yeah, it did feel kind of awkward. And I'm like, why are they portraying Genzo like this? It's kind of weird, but okay. Go off, Queen.
So then we get another Garp scene, and we have Zeph telling Garp that Garp should like let the new generation come into their own because Luffy is like different or whatever. And the reason I take issue with this is, again,
he's built different.
It's different from the actual Garp's character in the actual series because the actual Garp is in full acknowledgement of the next generation of people, specifically Marines, I suppose, but in like the next generation of people and events that are upcoming, and that he should not attempt to still that tide, and that it's going to come inevitably. So it's like
he's fully on board. And
he
he's even like, yeah, and if he's training Helmeppo and like what's his face, and he's like,
you don't even remember Kobe's name, even though Kobe is more of a character than Helmeppo.
I hate Kobe. Helmeppo's actor is so good. That's why I remember his name.
Helmeppo's actor did a good job. Yeah, it's true.
Yeah, he did a good job here too. Like when they're at the bar and he goes, you know something, tell me what you know. You know, like I was like, oh yes, Queen, get it. You know, but yeah, it's and oh my god. Oh, okay. I'm so sorry. Say something. I'll be right back.
I'll say something by going to the next scene, which is that there's a party going on in Arlong Park, and all of the fishmen are like hanging out in the party or whatever. And they all are such awkward party goers and dancers. They are doing the,
God,
the
yes.
white guy dance, as people kind of put it. It's like white guys don't know how to dance. That is what all of the fishmen were doing. They're just kind of like
like
Woo!
like stiff, like
Yeah, let's.
yeah, let's
Woo!
go. I'm
They
like, they probably can't move in their costumes, is what it is too, and their makeup.
they were. I mean, they were acting like actual like video game NPCs in the background instead of like background characters.
They were probably told like, just do whatever, like we don't care. Just kind of dance or just kind of like move around, whatever.
Um, did you have something else to say about the garb stuff before you got interrupted by your dog?
I don't remember.
Okay then. Um,
He's such a pain. I'm sorry.
moving on, we get the scene. Is this when Nojiko decides to tell? I think this is when Nojiko decides to tell the Straw Hats their story. Is when it actually shows Arlong attacking specifically their house.
Mm-hmm.
In which case,
Mm.
in which circumstance, Balmer's attack on Arlong is like way more pathetic. Instead of like pushing him over and
Yeah.
straddling him and pointing a gun in his mouth, he just kind of like deflects her gun as soon as he walks in the door. So much less
Yeah,
interesting.
and that's what I mean. Like we don't see that like that very like strong personality, you know? Like she's like this Belmare reminds me of like a middle-aged mother.
Yeah.
When like the mother in the anime, she seems like somebody maybe in her maybe early 30s, you know? Like that's kind of the age, kind of the vibe I'm getting.
Yeah.
Oh wait, no, she's in her late 20s in the anime. Yeah, she's in her late 20s
Yeah, she's in
is
her
what
late
she
20s.
says.
Yeah,
Yeah, and
she's relatively young.
yeah, and so and in the live action, you don't get that vibe. She's just any old middle-aged mother.
True. Um, also, it makes Arlong less threatening because he doesn't bite a gun into smithereens.
Literally crush it in his mouth.
Yeah. Um, the way that he finds the house is way less interesting. And instead of collecting all of the bounty, and then like making double checking against the register, and then like seeing there's smoke over there. Oh, there might be another house. Um, instead, he just like shows up at the house.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah, because I think it was like Genzo and
Yeah, and
what
he
the
also
doctor
has.
too.
Yeah, he also has Genzo and the doctor, or at least Genzo. Yeah, because I think the doctor like hid Nami and Nojiko from Arlong, like in the tangerine bushes, and Genzo was the one who
Mhm.
brought Arlong to the house. But Arlong saw the smoke and basically asked Genzo to lead them there, and that's why Genzo was there when Arlong attacked Belmare, and he sacrificed his body to attempt to protect the children. It didn't work.
Yeah.
But so and again, this goes back to scars being less important in the live action. Uh,
Ugh. Yeah, and also like in the anime you're on the edge of your seat in this scene, or at least I was, man.
yeah,
Because the whole time in the anime, like they're hoping that Arlong's not gonna notice that there's a house at the end of the tangerine orchard because you can't really see it. So they're hoping like, oh God, I hope he doesn't see the house, and then he sees it, and they're
I
like,
think it's
okay,
actually one of his
I hope,
men that sees it. Even
yeah. And so like you're on the edge, you're like praying and hoping that like he doesn't notice, and then when he enters a house
you're
and
praying and
you're
notice he doesn't
hoping,
discover the children.
and then you see the plate, all three plates on the table, you know, and it's
And
just like,
the reason, and one of the reasons it's important for Genzo to be there is because he makes the excuse like, "Oh, I was gonna have dinner with her tonight."
yeah. So it's just like it, and then it just
And the
has you
Bellsman's
like,
like, I can't lie about having daughters. Even they
yeah, I
were
can
like
never lie
so
about you guys.
close.
And oh man, it's just such a tearjerker. And in the live action, it's just kind of like, okay.
He's just there now. Uh,
Yeah, and like because like we don't have this attachment towards Belmare because like she has no personality. She's boring. Any old middle aged mother. Like, well, she couldn't be my mom. Okay, my mom's badass. Okay, me and my mom. But she's just boring. She's such a boring character. They give her no personality at all. So why should I feel attached to her? Why should I care? You know? So, yeah. She's not anybody unique. Sorry.
Um,
And why should I care about Genzo? Genzo's nobody unique. He's boring as well. He's a nobody.
and then there's also and part of the reason Genzo, again, this is like a massive cascade of a bunch of things going wrong. Part of the reason it's important for Genzo to lie about the dinner is because in the live action, without him doing so, when Arlong notices the table set for 3, he threatens Belmer and is like, anybody else live here? And it is under that threat that she acquiesces in saying that she has 2 daughters, as opposed
Mhm.
to Arlong was already leaving and her deciding for herself that she cannot lie about the fact that she has daughters.
Yeah, like it's too late. You know, the jig is up.
Yeah, the emotions that are conveyed through these 2 different presentations are like totally different, or rather the themes being portrayed totally different. And then
Yeah.
also child Nojiko is among the bottom tier of the child actors. She had no expression on her face and was not in tears.
Yeah. Well, and
Meanwhile,
then
child Nami was actually kind of killing it.
well, no, and even like Nami, she like she had tears running down her face, but at one point it's like it's very quick, but she's like, "Mom," and then she's like, and then she goes, eh.
I mean, maybe it's because I had the episode playing on higher speed that I didn't notice that then.
Okay. I mean, it's very quick, but it's hilarious because the focus is on her.
Yeah.
I was like, girl, you were killing it, and then you had to relax your face just a little bit. I was like, you go, girl, though.
Hey,
You're doing good.
at least I can say for child Nami, she tried her best. I cannot say that for child Nojiko. I did not get that impression.
No. No, Nojiko was like, my mom's about to die, but I'm just a little worried about her.
Yeah.
My mom was kind of boring anyway, so yeah. And and then like I can't remember how far, but in the live action, like she's like, "Okay, bye, girls, love you," and then she like hides them behind her as she's like gets shot in the head. I'm like, oh, did that happen in the anime? I don't remember because I didn't watch that part in the anime. But I'm like, that's very traumatic. Why would you hide your kids behind you as you're being shot in the head? Like, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't I know Nami went up and hugged Belmer before Arlong shot her.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't remember if Nami was still hugging her when Arlong shot her. I don't think so. I think either Genzo or the doctor pulled
Like took
Nami
them.
away from
Yeah.
Belmer when that happened.
See
Or
that's what I was thinking.
or maybe it was one of Arlong's crew that like forced her away. Don't remember.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. So like again, why would you hide your kids behind you as you're getting shot in the head? Because like they're gonna get your brain splatter on them. Like, what are you doing, ma'am? Worst mom and the worst mom of the year award, honestly.
Um,
Yeah.
so then we cut back to the present, and we are forced to beg the question: why did Luffy listen to any of this? And this is an important
Oh
question
yeah,
to
because
beg.
Luffy's like, meh in the anime.
Yeah, this is an important question to beg because this is one of those times where there's a direct parallel between what is happening between the anime and the live action, with one major difference: Luffy being there or not. Because when Nojiko went off on her exposition flashback rant, Luffy basically said, "Fuck this, I'm out, I'm going for a walk." Whereas in this case, Luffy was basically, he wasn't the one who asked Nojiko. I think it was Sanji who asked Nojiko to start
Mhm.
beginning to talk, or prompted her. But Luffy was actively invested in going to learn more, as opposed to being like, "Fuck it, I'm here. I'm going for a walk."
Yeah. Cause Luffy's like, Luffy in the anime was like, I'm not gonna understand it anyway, so like, bye,
Yeah.
gotta go.
Yeah.
I
As
I love my friend and I care about her.
I don't know if he
That's why I'm
explicitly
here.
stated it then, but it's definitely explicitly stated for one of the flashbacks through in the series where somebody goes to say something to him and he's like, "I'm not gonna understand it anyways." Fucking
I'm
out.
dumb. I
Yeah.
think somebody on Twitter. Oh my god, this is so funny. This is so random. But you know the scene where Arlong and him are about to fight and like, you know, Luffy's like popping his hit my mic. And Luffy's like popping his knuckles and stuff.
Yeah.
And Arlong is like, you know the difference between you and me? And Luffy goes, "Oh, your nose." Or something like that. And he,
Your nose.
yeah, and somebody was like, "There's not a thought in between those eyes, man." You know, in the anime, he ain't got no kind of thoughts,
Yeah.
just like nothing, no spark. This Luffy in the live action, he got lots of thoughts.
And I think that actually is a notable line to bring up, where in regards to the humor of not even like the slapstick element of it, because that's not really slapstick humor in the way most of One Piece humor is, but just is a lot more clever, not even like clever, but just I guess just like witty in how stupid it is dialogue than anything the live action presents, where where you have this like super dramatic scene and and the villain is being so serious and acting all high and mighty, and Luffy's like just not even.
Interested.
Yeah, he's just not even interested. He's like, "What? I mean, doesn't matter. I'm gonna beat you up anyways." And then you just get none of that, just like straightforward, um, diffusion of tension in the live action.
Yeah, none. It's just straight up like tension or like it's supposed to be tension, but it's just the script is all weird and the way the actors are coming off, you know, the
Speaking of
dialogue's
tension,
weird, so it's not coming off as like tension. You know what I mean?
yeah,
So it's just like it's just awkward. It ends up being awkward, bro. But man, that was so funny. I gotta send it to you because it's just it's so fun. I was cracking up
I
when I
mean,
saw it.
I remember that scene with clarity. It's a good
So
one.
funny.
Uh,
Ugh.
And then furthermore, after Nojiko tells this story, Luffy goes up onto the roof and like sits down and does some stargazing, and Zoro follows him. And Luffy starts like talking about it
Monologuing.
to Zoro, like monologuing basically. And I'm just like,
Who is this man?
why? Who is this man? But I feel like it all just serves to make him a less interesting character than the person who walks away from the flashback thinking, I'm not going to understand it anyways, and I already know what's going on emotionally or what I have to do.
Mm-hmm.
Or
Yeah.
I think actually more so than that, he already knows what he wants, because yes, actually, because what he says in the live action is he wants to hear it from Nami herself, which is also the case in the actual series, but the way he goes about doing that is not by saying it, but by basically just being there when Nami is at her lowest, so then Nami then says it to him. Which is
Yeah.
just it's just so much more interesting to have that lack of dialogue than it is to have the abundance of dialogue in this particular case.
Yeah. Because it's almost like even with the lack of dialogue, you don't even notice, you
Yeah.
know? It's like not even a bad thing. Like you would think it'd be a bad thing, but the way it's like written, it's not a bad thing. It's
It's
just
because
Luffy.
everybody else is talking, and it's just
Yeah.
Luffy is not the one talking.
Yeah, it's like everybody's kind of accommodating Luffy and just being like, okay,
Yeah.
that's
It,
Luffy, bro.
you don't need to force Luffy into being an interesting character. You just have to
That
let
ding ding ding.
Luffy be an interesting character.
That's what it is. they're forcing it, and it's nauseating, bro. Let Luffy be Luffy, okay? Ugh.
As I said
Man,
that,
I want to get Brittany to watch the live action. I wonder how she would feel about Luffy.
uh, as I said that, I also thought about a particular way of drawing Luffy that happens sometimes, way of depicting him. Sometimes when he puts on the hat and it like shades over his eyes and you can only see like his mouth and
hmm
the expression on his mouth. And you never get, I don't know if it, I don't remember if it actually happens this early on in the series or to what extent it might. But you don't get that with live action Luffy at all. Um, which is just unfortunate.
Yeah, I don't remember it happening in the series yet, but of course, like I've seen stuff on Twitter, so thank you.
um, so then there's
Oh, and then I was gonna say about the scene with Garp and Zeph. Man, those two white men look just alike.
I mean, one of them is English and the other is like Scottish, so they're not that far removed from each other ethnically.
It's like when they switch back and forth to them, and of course they can't have them in the same shot at the same time. They
Right.
had to go back and forth, back and forth. And I was like, man, those white men look just alike, both graying and like blue eyes. Like I swear they got the exact shade of blue eyes. It's like
They secretly had the same actor play both Seth and Garp.
it was so fun. I thought it was hilarious. Yeah, but that's what I was gonna say.
Are you being racist towards white people?
Yes,
Sweaty.
yes, I am. Suck it up.
So during the awkward fishman party, the even more awkward mouse marines show up.
He
And
got with
interrupt
his
the
little
party.
fake mouse ears. He's so cute.
Hey, the costume design again, generally pretty good in the series. I know I made fun of the wigs for Child, Nami, and Nojiko earlier, but I mean the costume design's still pretty fucking solid.
I mean, I've seen furry costumes look better. Okay, I've seen furry
Well,
ears look better.
more involved. Because Nezumi's design is not like a super involved mouse-like design in the first place, anyways. But I mean,
Yeah.
hey, if you say so, I believe you because I'm not out here looking at furries all that often.
Just saying. I mean, they look like you got them from the dollar store. But you know,
Operating on a
go off.
budget despite the paying more millions per episode than the most television shows.
Yeah, honestly,
That's why our long park is fucking empty.
disgusting.
So Arlong, they have like this conversation about like Arlong's actions be requiring more pay from Nezumi to cover them up or what have you. And something I do,
Nezumi got he's got a lot of nerve, my dude, asking for more money like that.
I mean, he's
Just
also
saying.
not wrong in this circle of bribery, and he does inevitably acquiesce to actually accepting less money than usual.
Because he's actually racist.
Yeah, because Arlong accuses him of being racist. And so that is what I was gonna mention actually, is that I do actually like having Arlong lean further into the racism in the live action than he does in the original series, because that actually is an instance of the live action having the bonus of hindsight. That Oda, even if he might have had plans going in the future, does not have, obviously, when he's like 80 chapters into his now over 1,100 chapter manga, in which there's like an arc effectively dedicated to fishman racism, and having
Because
Arlong
even in
Arlong's
our video, I was like, well, like, there's no racism against the fishermen, right? And you were like, I don't know. Yeah.
And Arlong's character is actually expounded upon during that arc. having him lean further into the racism has them display a level of like prescience for what the series wants to do going forward. Um, Simply because it already exists, so they already know that there's going to be that level of expansion in the future.
Yeah. It, but I was like, man, Nezumi got a lot of nerve. He's like, oh, well,
Yeah.
I guess you guys are actually intelligent.
They're
And and I was like, man, the fishmen were actually enslaved. You guys would enslave those strong fishmen? Couldn't be me, bro.
yeah,
I ain't about
that's
to get beat up like
well,
that.
you find
Mm-mm.
in One Piece, even if the fishmen are supposedly, at least nominally, like on average stronger than the average human, your species effectively doesn't matter in your strength cap. You know, Luffy uh is currently one of the most powerful people in the world and will likely be the most powerful person in the world at the end of the series. And, you know, he's one of the scrawniest humans on the planet, and
True.
he's fighting against literal giants. So
True.
not that much of a distinction of like who's stronger or whatever. But I did want to point out one particular line in regards to slavery, in which Nezumi says slavery has been abolished, and I think even though I said I like them leaning into Arlong being racist more, this actually is a moment of poor writing because they don't have Arlong push back on that. And instead, I forget what comment he makes instead. Um, but no, fishman slavery has not been abolished. Nobody who is in the Grand Line has any sort of uh, um, believes for a second that slavery has been abolished for either fishmen or other people. So it strikes me as very odd that they would know in the future of the series slavery is like a prominent thing that gets brought up, and Arlong knows from experience what that is, and they don't have him push back on Nezumi claiming that slavery has been abolished. And then but I do also like how they go on and how the Marines are perpetuating the unfair prejudice and slavery systems. Uh, uh, they're responsible for perpetuating that. So it's like all cops are bastards is a theme of One Piece, and that's one of the major things you could point to that demonstrates it.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Anyways, you have anything to add?
Um. Oh, I think I was frozen for a minute. I don't think I really have anything to add, but I did think that scene was interesting because maybe I was thinking maybe that's why they well I guess I better not say that. Never mind. I might save that for next time. Never mind. Never mind.
Are you gonna become Arlong?
I want to become Arlong. Never mind. Never mind. Okay.
So then that is followed up by Nami saying to Arlong she has the money to purchase the village back from Arlong, which is worse than her almost having enough money and still having it secret, because it makes Arlong less conniving and I guess conniving is the best word for it. In his manipulation, manipulative actually was the other word. Arlong is less conniving and manipulative of Nami when he goes out of his way to steal her money after she says she's going to make the purchase, especially since that is also him going back on his deal,
Yeah.
as opposed to going out of his way to find the money just before she has enough and then steal it.
Yeah. It's like snatching away that hope.
Yeah.
That like, oh my god, I'm almost there. And then I'll be able to make it. And I don't know. That's a little bit more impactful to snatch that hope away right
And
then.
furthermore, another thing that reminded me that is completely missing is after the treasure gets stolen by Nezumi and his goons in the actual series, Nami has a sort of like um 5 stages of depression. She has a sort of like bargaining instance, I think would be the right one, where she's like, it's okay, I can just start over from zero and I'll get it all back again. And I know how to do it now, so I'll do it even quicker this time. Uh,
Hmm.
and you don't get that in the live action. You don't get this sort of like development of Nami's uh, spiral into despair.
Yeah, and it's almost like a kind of helpless, like panic, and helplessness. Like trying to convince herself that everything's gonna be okay when it's like when us as the audience is like, girl, it's not gonna be okay. How are you gonna get out of this? And then of course we have, Nami and Nejiko's scene, whenever
Nejiko.
she tries to, wait, what's her
Nejiko,
name?
Nejiko. That's a song by Tama Onsen. Nojiko.
Nojiko. I was like, what's her name then? Nojiko, where Nojiko tries to whack her in the head with the shovel.
Oh
I was like,
yes.
oh my god, violent. And I was like, that's not who she is at all, like in the anime. Like, no, she's like 100% by Nami's side, like
Yeah.
that is her sister and she loves her and she's there to support her. And like, like, she doesn't, her sister has a goal and she does not want to screw that up for Nami. She is gonna, she doesn't want to get in Nami's way. So she's going to be there as like a pillar of support. So when Nami needs her, she's going to be there for her. And she's going to come through when Nami needs her.
Yeah.
And I love that kind of sister dynamic. That's the way like I kind of roll with my siblings. I have nothing but sisters. That's how I kind of roll with my sisters. So really that felt really relatable to me in the anime. And then you take that away from me and have my girls fight each other like that? I didn't appreciate that. Okay.
It, and in doing this, it's even worse than the way you described, because another thing that happens is that through Nojiko, the rest of the village discovers what Nami's deal with Arlong is,
Mhm.
after they had like been mean to her for a couple of years or whatever, and they they also decide to stay out of it until Nami is able to purchase the village back, until Arlong steals the money, and so like the that having that be the case makes them rising up in arms against Arlong far more significant as of an event than it is in the live action, where it's like, oh, we just learned about this like 30 minutes ago. Let's go fight Arlong now.
Yeah. It's like it's like a support system that Nami didn't know she had.
Yeah,
And
and it comes across in the actual series as more of them fighting for the sake of Nami, as opposed to just like fighting, I guess, for themselves.
yeah, yeah. And again, as I always say, every freaking one of these episodes, where's the community? There's no community.
There is no
There is
community.
none.
There's no community.
Makes me very sad. Because in every and like you've said too, this is what One Piece is about. It's about community. But again, we're missing the whole point of One Piece throughout all this live action. So, yeah,
Yeah, where's the community? There's no community.
it makes it very sad. So,
Yeah.
I'm over it.
What next? So once again, we cut back to fucking Zeph and Garp, which makes me as depressed to mention now as it does you. um,
Mm.
And Zeph makes the comment that Luffy is like Gold Roger, and the thing I wrote down is, I hope live action Gold Roger isn't as pathetic to watch as Luffy. Because here's the thing, you get to see
Dang.
you get to see what Gold Roger is like later on in One Piece, and of course, Luffy acts in a lot of similar ways as Gold Roger. It's like,
Yeah.
kind of the point. Inherited will is like a big theme that you'll start hearing a lot more of after we finish Skypiea. Um, and and I don't want Gold Roger to act in the way that live action Luffy does. Like the way
Awkward.
the way that Gold Roger is depicted in the manga and the anime is so much more vibrant and exciting and fun than live action Luffy is.
Live action Luffy, he kind like I said, he reminds me of like that reminds me of like a dog. And not like a happy, cheerful dog, just like a dog. I don't know how else to explain it. But he's just like not he's and like they try to make him more real, and he just comes off as like so fake. I just I don't know. Just like
Yeah.
he's it's like he's not even a person. He's not even a person anymore. He's yeah.
So I wrote down Nojiko hating Nami is less interesting. I think we basically described why that's the case. So
Yeah.
this is the next flashback back to Nami. I hate how many times that there's been this back and forth between scenes again.
Yeah. Like in the anime, they did it
Irritates me.
one time. That
Yeah,
was it.
one time.
Ta-da.
So in this case, this is finally when I bring up that Nami in the live action volunteers herself to become a part of Arlong's crew and offers that deal to Arlong instead of the other way around, which is, not as heartbreaking, I suppose.
Yeah.
Considering in the actual series, and it's also less interesting on Arlong's part, considering in the actual series, Arlong basically just happens to notice there's a well-drawn map inside the house, and he's like, wow, this is a pretty well-drawn map, and Nami lashes out at him after he killed Belmare and is like, get your hands off my map, already took one precious thing away from me, don't take the other precious thing, and then he fucking kidnaps her.
Literally, like, sir, that is a child. What are you doing? But that's just the kind of person he is. He sees something that he wants, and he's going to take it. He's gonna snatch it away. He's gonna snuff it out, take it away. And he's gonna use you and abuse you until he's done with you. That's the kind of person he is.
And then when she goes back to the village afterwards and sort of like announces, you could say, that she joined the Arlong Pirates, you can see the anguish on her face as a child. And maybe this is an extra benefit of it being drawn, but it's sort of extraordinary how just heartbreaking it is to see that look on her face when she shows off her tattoo to the entire village. Whereas in this case, you don't really get that scene. It might happen in the next episode. I briefly looked at it for a different thought that I had, and that's when she gets tattooed. But you don't get that same sort of impact of her being kidnapped and then coerced into taking that deal, as opposed to offering that deal herself.
Yeah, and I even think when
Nami's supposed to be like fucking 5, I think, or something like that at this point in time. She might be a little older.
In the anime it said it was 8 years ago.
Oh, so this entire time I've been saying 10 plus years. I've actually been wrong. It's 8 years. My bad.
Yeah, but
she looks like
loser. Loser. Yeah, I'm trying to think what. Yeah, and I think I think in the anime too, whenever she goes back to Kokoyashi Village, she's wearing like brand new clothes. Because Arlong's
Oh
like, yeah,
yeah.
I'll buy you new clothes, like I'll buy you whatever you want, and like that's what she's always wanted is like new clothes, right? And it's
Yeah,
like,
and that's why they all get the initial misconception too, is they're like, it's because now you no longer have to, or that's what she tells them. Now I don't have
mm-hmm,
to live a life in poverty anymore. Now that I've joined Arlong Pirates, and you're like, no, why? And it's awful. And in this case, it's just like, yeah, I'll fucking give you some maps if you let me buy back my village, instead.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
lamer.
and it's like, okay, like, yeah, it hits God, it hits you so hard in the anime, and I think even Nojiko's like whooping on Nami too in the anime. I don't remember if it's in live action or not.
Because I think Nojiko also doesn't discover immediately why Nami joined the Arlong Pirates. She discovers sooner than the villagers. I don't remember. I think it's actually shortly after she shows off the tattoo.
Yeah,
Um,
I think so.
don't remember the details.
Yeah, I don't either. But it does show like her as a kid, like watching Nami like hide, all the money and stuff, and her being like, it's okay, like look, and she's all beat up as a kid. And so yeah.
Um, so also, and so now we're back in the present again. So Nami had dug up her chest of riches to buy back the village, and Nojiko had been yelling at her, and that's when we get the flashback of her joining Arlong. Um, and so immediately after that flashback is when you have that crisp shot where everything is all in focus and it looks good. Uh,
Wow.
yeah. Um, but it's also less interesting. I mean, it's more expedient and not that big of a deal in this case. On the part of the Marines, where it's like, oh, the chest of riches is right there already dug up for me, as
Perfect
opposed to them
timing.
having to ransack the. Actually, I disagree with my previous statement. It's not as good in the live action as them ransacking the entire grounds of the property, just digging in random spots, destroying the tangerine fields, looking for the riches.
Hmm. Like destroying all their mother's hard work.
Yeah. And furthermore, in that case, Nami is fighting back. She actually fights back against them and like beats a few of them up before she's restrained. Whereas in this
Hmm.
case, she's restrained immediately. She doesn't accomplish anything.
Yeah, I mean, she's screaming bloody murder, but like you said, she's accomplishing nothing. So,
Yeah. Uh,
and there's this slow motion picking up the money, putting in the,
yeah.
and
And
which that's
then
pretty clear. You can see the money very clearly.
yeah, I think don't they also like slow it down? They put in some
Yeah, yeah,
slow mo
yeah.
as they're shoveling the money in too to like
Yeah,
try and make it look more dramatic. And it's like I'm not feeling the extra drama from the slow mo. I feel like you're just wasting my time.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And they do the slow mo on her too, and they do it to where like you can't hear her screaming, and yeah,
I mean, I'm not gonna make fun of them too hard for doing it, because like it probably worked for some people, but I don't know. I was too annoyed by all their bad changes
exactly.
to think like, oh, this slow mo is actually making me feel something more when I'm barely feeling anything.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
and I don't know. It felt cheesy to me.
It was very cheesy. It was a cheesy move, I feel
Yeah.
like.
And then we get one of my favorite scenes in just all of the live action for how bad it is.
Oh, I think
which
I know
is
where you're going with this.
yeah, which is Arlong's big racism speech for the all of his crew, in which
It
they use every single take and every single shot that they had of that speech and strung them together. So you'll have instances where Arlong will say a line and then very clearly it's a different take or shot before he says the next line. It's so awful. It's so distracting.
Mhm. Yeah,
This
wasn't even paying attention to that, to be honest. I think I kind of blacked out for a minute.
this was on my first watching of this series with a bunch of friends in a voice call. I think this was throughout the entire rest of the series, I was pretty like middling of opinion on it. And I think this was the scene in which I went full this series is bad mode.
Flipping tables.
Yeah, that scene flipped a switch for me where I saw that and I was like, how could any show be this bad?
Yeah, yeah. I wonder. I remember watching it the first time and us laughing about it, but then as watching it again, I was like full on just blacked out. Don't even remember it.
This I this has to be like Tommy Wiseau levels of bad, where the people who were doing the editing thought they were like doing a good job, but to anybody with eyes, it's like so atrocious. But it's like so bad that you can't help but enjoy it, I guess.
Yeah, might as well enjoy the ride.
Most of the rest of live action One Piece makes me angry because it's fucking up otherwise actually like beautiful emotional scenes.
Mm-hmm.
But in this case, it's an instance where it looks like they're trying to do something and just failing every step of the way in a way that I can't help but laugh at and enjoy.
Yeah, yeah. I would say it is pretty. It's pretty yikes. It's very cringe. I feel like Arlong does have like these racist kind of speeches in the anime, and I feel like, and I just
It's a
feel
lot less
like,
toned down though. It's a
yeah,
lot less direct. He sort of kind of he comments on how like he thinks fishmen are actually better than humans, but
mm-hmm,
it doesn't necessarily sound like his whole motivation revolves around it or like it's necessarily like that important of a characteristic.
yeah,
The live action makes it a lot more important of a characteristic.
yeah. That's what it is. Okay, yeah, that explains it.
Yeah. Um
It's
so
his whole personality.
yeah.
They
So
took out the menacing part though. The like the because like Arlong reminds me of like an abusive ex boyfriend a little bit to Nami, and they took that part out. It kept and like put in full racism.
they took out the
But yeah,
manipulation and traded it out for some more racism.
yep.
Uh,
Oh well. Well,
I have to say that after the podcast. I'm not gonna say that now.
okay.
So then we get the like important scene that everybody remembers from this arc in the actual series. It's just Nami, fucking screaming and crying and stabbing herself.
Hmm.
Um, and
Iconic.
yeah, it is the moment of the arc. I suppose one of, but I think it's the I think it's the moment. And this is also the moment in which I think it's most obvious that the actors are actually good, and it is the scripting and directing that is letting them down because Nami's actor actually did a pretty good job with like the screaming and the crying and the being upset. And throughout the episode, I felt like the actors doing a pretty good job. So it feels like they know how to act. The fucking script and the directing is letting them down.
Yeah. Yeah, because it was full on like raw emotion, like
Yeah,
raw screaming emotion. It wasn't super fakey. So yeah.
yeah. But I feel bad for if she had to do that more than one time.
Oh yeah. I mean, cause she was like screaming.
Yeah. That's what you do when you're an actor though. Um but the more important thing to mention here is how they're in the live action they cut out a lot of straw hat stuff. In specifically stuff that revolves around Zoro and Usopp showing up before Sanji and Luffy.
Their little thing, yeah.
Yeah. So you don't have Zoro given like the runaround to Arlong, but more importantly, you don't have the moment where Usopp like shows up to try and save Nami, and then Nami has to like stab herself in the hand to save him instead.
Yeah.
And the reason I bring this up, and probably a couple of other things that I'm missing, is that part of what the whole runaround stuff does, even if it comes across on initial viewing as sort of like not totally necessary, is it contributes to a building of Nami's desperation and emotion, in which you have these people who are trying to save her, and she's trying to shut them out, and she's trying to let them live, even though she's like not really in a position to do so. And she's and you're seeing how this is increasingly tearing her between what she needs to do to save the village and what she wants to do in go on adventures, which culminates, it like coalesces with the stuff with like the money being stolen, and culminates in this scene in the anime, in the manga. In the live action, by not including all of that other stuff, you are weakening the effect of this scene. Not to say it's not necessarily ineffective, but it is less effective than in the anime.
Yeah. Yeah, I would definitely say the same thing. Like, I totally agree.
Another way it's less effective is that her arm stabbings were way less bloody. Instead of stabbing herself like at
I think she
5
only does like
times or
3
however many it
times.
does, she only does it twice in the live action, and it just kind of got like 2 streaks of blood going down her arm. Whereas in
Man,
the
because it
anime,
was like
it's like her arm is like
bloody.
covered in blood. It's like pretty rough,
Yeah.
man.
It was freaking nasty.
Yeah.
And like it's a lot more like visceral. And then you can like see, and then she's like hearing Arlong in her head, and Arlong's like kind of like
Oh
you can
yeah.
kind of like hear his laugh, you know.
Yeah.
And that's like what she's thinking about constantly. It's just him like laughing at her, you know. And that, and she gets that visceral reaction where she's like, I need you out of my life. And like she can only take that anger out on herself, and that representation of him is on her body, you know. So that's the only way she can take her anger out on
Dude.
him, is on herself, you know.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You know. And that's it's very symbolic, you know, when you add his face and his laughter, you know what I mean?
Yeah. And you're making me want to just listen to Nami's voice actress, Japanese voice actress in that scene right now too, because oh my god, she fucking kills it in
Killed
the
it,
anime.
bro.
She was
Mm.
The way she was screaming Arlong was just so
She did
awful.
great.
Like in the good kind of awful. It was like
Yeah.
raw. It was fucking raw,
Yeah.
man.
And she did it a lot too. They had her do it like not just 1, 2 times. It was like,
Yeah,
felt like it was like a
because like you
lot in
said,
a,
she stabbed
yeah.
herself, I think, at least 5 times in the anime, where
Yeah.
she only stabbed herself twice in the live action, and every single time in the
Mhm.
anime she stabbed herself, it corresponded with her saying Arlong.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was fucking rough, man.
And I feel like having this scene in the dark, in the pitch black, in a field,
Oh yeah,
I
it
feel
also
like
took
just
place at night. Oh, I feel like that's another thing to get into, but I guess it's for the next episode, where it's where it's
yeah.
like the scene takes place at night, and then like daytime comes and they arrive at Kokiyashi Village and like talk about it for a while, and then they raid Arlong. Whereas in the anime, it's during the daytime and they just go straight to Arlong, and it's still during the day, and it's like, what
Yeah.
is this time lapsing?
You know, time's different in One Piece, okay? Time flows
True.
differently, bro.
I mean,
But
if you try to think really hard about the logic of how long certain things take in One Piece, it doesn't make any sense. Like, how
no,
long is a
doesn't.
year in One Piece?
Who knows? Only
It's
God knows.
it,
Only Oda knows.
yeah, only Oda knows. I mean, this is like it's very much a side tangent, but it's especially in respect to like their ages, where like all of their birthdays effectively had to have been right before they joined the Straw Hat Pirates, and then less than a year passed for like the entirety of their journey up until the time skip, and then after the time skip, less than a year for the entirety of that so far. And it and like when you correspond that with like the events that are taking place and the sailing that they are doing, it's like that can't be right.
Like,
How is
whoa, pause.
how is
Yeah.
Luffy 17 throughout the entirety of all of that? That doesn't make any sense.
Like, everybody had their birthday in the same month, okay?
All of the Straw Hats actually um share the same birthday. It's pure coincidence. They coincidentally just share the same birthday, you know?
They're all Tauruses, okay? And they all just magically get along.
Yeah. Oh,
Hey, but yeah, I just hate that it's in the dark, this whole scene, because it's like, it should be in the daytime where you can see everything and you can feel everything more, but instead it's like pitch black, bro. Like, I can't see very well on my iPad as it is. You putting it in the dark, like, come on. Ugh.
there's another thing that I have to make fun of with this scene too, which is Nami says to Luffy, "You don't know what's going on here," and he says, "I don't," and it's and it's like, dog, you wrote earlier in this script an entire scene in which Nojiko tells Luffy
Oh, I didn't catch that.
what's
Bro.
going on. It may not have been like the entire story. It was just the part in which Arlong showed up and killed her mother. But like, you do have an idea of what's
very
going on.
important. Yeah.
This is like a direct copy over from the actual series, and the line makes sense in the actual series because Luffy doesn't listen to any part of the story. So it's like,
Oh,
why did they copy? They just ignored the previous part of their script to include the one-liner or the iconic line, I suppose, from the actual series with no thought put in to how the adaptation works and why the manga is written in the way it is when they adapt it over. If you change something, when you adapt it over, the rest of your changes have to match your other changes. They can't clash with each other like this. That's called a plot hole.
Yeah. It's like you said, it just makes everything a lot more fuzzy.
Yeah.
But again, what is time? What is language in One Piece? You know,
Yeah.
what are
Right.
things?
You have anything else to say about this episode?
Oh my god! And then it was so awkward. Like, oh my god! Whenever they're sitting, because this whole scene, right, happens in the town square, I think. And so like it looks natural that Zoro's like sitting in the town square and Sanji's sitting in the town square and so is Usopp. Okay. And then I'm like
Actually,
and then
where
when
did
you
they
kind of
come
pan
from?
out. Yeah. Yeah.
Actually, where did
they're all
Luffy
like
come from?
yeah. And it's like they're just sitting in the field, like chilling on rocks. Like, what are we doing?
I'm actually I don't know if this was your initial point, but like in the live action, it does kind of feel like they just kind of come out of nowhere
Yes.
because you
Yes.
go into this scene directly after you show Nezumi stealing all of the gold from Nami.
Mm-hmm.
Or actually, that's not entirely true. You get the Arlong funny racism speech in between that too. But you don't get
Because Nami takes off right after that. I
yeah.
can't. Yeah. To go
But
after Arlong.
but you don't see any of what the Straw Hats are doing after the scene of Luffy talking to Zoro on the roof. So
Right.
it really does beg the question of like, why are they there? Where did they come from? At least in the anime, Luffy had like just been taking a walk, and he just happens to show up in front of Nami. Which, by the way, another way that the scene is done better in the anime too is when she's like throwing dirt at him, screaming at him to go away. Instead, she just tells him in the live action, I told you to leave, instead of fucking leave, you bitch. I'm throwing dirt at you. One hits way harder than the other. Anyways, that was a side tangent.
Yeah.
But like Luffy was taking a walk, and he just stumbled upon Nami having a mental breakdown, and then he sort of walks past his crew that I mean, I suppose them being there is also technically a little out of the blue, but it feels more like they naturally like went in that direction from after the conversation with Nojiko.
Yeah, well, because like they're in the town square in the anime, so it feels kind of like okay.
Yeah. Oh,
but here it's like
this is also
after because like they're posed. You know what I mean? Like in the field, like Zoro's like posed.
Yeah. it part of the reason it makes a lot more sense, especially in regards to it being in the town square, because you say it's in the town square and it's like, oh, where's all the townsfolk? They had just left to attack Arlong because of what happened to Nami's plan. And so so the town is abandoned, and she could just go ahead and have a mental breakdown in the middle. And part of the reason she has the mental breakdown is because they all stormed past her, saying, "We're going to fuck up Arlong." After she tried to stop them, and she failed to stop them. And so so instead of that coming after her mental breakdown like it does in the live action, it comes before, contributes to her mental breakdown, makes her mental breakdown hit even harder. And it's like, and that's why the Straw Hats are also there, because they were there when the fucking town was getting all riled up about fucking up Arlong. Oh my god.
Yeah.
There's just so much more thought in the actual series put in to the dynamics of what people are doing when and where.
And why.
And why, yes.
And like so before we get none of that.
There's so much more of like pushing Nami to her breaking point before she finally breaks too. It's just, oh god, the live action is so fucking pathetic. just I have no other word for it, I suppose, than pathetic.
Yeah.
Alright, anything else?
I think that's it.
Alright. Next time on the Pirate Odyssey, we can finally stop having our own mental breakdown.
Thank God. Whew.
Oh jeez. I before before that rant, I had actually thought of like a good way to end this off, and then I had that rant and I just totally forgot it. So
just such lost. Yeah, definitely.
It's whatever. we can stop doing this after next week. Thank fucking Christ Almighty.
Thank the Lord, and then we can move on to something else.
I think we're gonna be doing the movies afterwards, or at least the movies that released in between the start of the series and where we are in Skypiea, and then we can finally get back to the actual series. Woo!
Ooh, oh my PFP is from somebody said like movie 6. Oh my god, that's so funny.
No, it's not movie 6. I think it's movie 4 is the one that everybody praises, in part because it's from like a super famous director and he did like a really good job with it or something. And it also like apparently feels different than actual One Piece. It's like more of a mystery or whatever. Anyways, Captain Girl showed up right at the end just to say goodbye. So we're gonna love him. We're gonna peace out now. See you fucking next week, you Giga Chads who actually watch this because you're really cool. Unlike all the people who don't, they're losers.
Losers. Dorks.
Peace.